Cobra Kai Never Die. So, kind of funny. I actually just did this video. Um, and I was doing some drawing here, and yeah, I was talking about the series Cobra Kai, and then it didn't record anything. So I've kind of accomplished what I wanted to with this drawing. So I guess I can add some small details and stuff with this. Like also, I during that process, I realized I put the shadow on the wrong side of John Kreese because if the light's shining this way, the shadow would be over here. So maybe I'll fix that as I talk. But yeah, what I want to do is I want to review Cobra Kai, kind of the series as a whole. Long story short, love almost everything about it. There's one thing I hate about it, but still an amazing series, something to watch. And then a bit of advice for anybody who likes to draw faces and make things a little more dramatic. One good way of doing that is to darken the shadows to make things pop. You get more contrast. However, in some cases when you do it like in really thin lines, just don't do it because this went from being a decent drawing and then I was like, let's make it pop and make it dramatic. And then it just made it look like, Johnny's a 70-year-old woman wearing eyeliner and it is not having a good day at the office. So yeah, be careful of that. Works in some places, and then in some situations it does not. In any case, I'm not really a realistic drawer anyhow, so I was kind of just trying to draw these from like pictures I was looking at on my computer and freehanding it, and it kind of worked out okay. I think Johnny's decent, Hawk's decent, Miguel looks terrible. John Kreese came out okay. I think his proportions a little off. So anyhow, Cobra Kai. Why I think this series is probably the best thing on, I guess it's not television, but on YouTube right now, is because this thing really relates. It does a remake the correct way. It doesn't try and modernize it. It doesn't try and recreate it. It just kind of takes that story and continues it, but in a way where essentially a couple of two-dimensional characters, which is you know Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso, really they get built up as these three-dimensional protagonists. Especially in season one, when you see Johnny and the way his life has turned out, you realize like his best days were with Cobra Kai. You realize just how important Cobra Kai was to him because he went from being a kid that was being bullied and picked on and all these things to become this kind of badass karate champion. And then after school, it didn't work out. So, like I said, there is one thing I dislike about it. I'll talk about that in a second. But this show hits like 9 out of 10 points. This show is awesome. One, it's a throwback to these like action thrillers of the 1980s that you just don't see anymore. The fight scenes, especially in season one, the thing I love about them is they prioritize emotion of the fights over like the effects of the fight. So you'll see like genuine emotion on these guys' faces when they're throwing punches. They'll be grimacing, they'll be making noises, they'll be grunting. Especially in season one. Season two gets a little over the top, which I think over the top is referenced in season two. That's a side point, but aside from that, that makes some of these scenes memorable because it's a way to sell a lot of emotion very quickly. The other thing I like about this is the fact that these characters really change as people. So like Hawk, it goes from being this kid who's got a deformed lip to really being this asshole who just doesn't care about anything or anybody. And yet it's somewhat justified because you see so essentially he's a guy who's got a cleft lip, he's got a scar right there. But when he was before he became this persona of Hawk, he was really brutally picked on. Like people actually were just incredibly cruel to him. So that being the case, now that he has a chance to be an asshole, he's taking advantage of it. Hopefully he gets some sort of redemption. And the other thing about this show is this is a story of redemption. This is a story of Johnny's redemption. And then the double take on John Kreese's redemption. So Kreese comes in, and he is a person like Johnny who created Cobra Kai as a way to help people, but then just went over the top. So when he comes back in, at first you're like, oh, it's that really terrible sensei from the movie, and he's just gonna do some bad things. But then he has a sort of mini redemption arc, and you're like, oh, I get it. He's also gonna be a good guy like Johnny turns out to be, and then he's not. So they give it to you, and then they take it away. And he's got some interesting insights. And then the thing about him though is, instead of being just, because he's almost like a caricature of a bad guy in a way, and that he's just so conniving and manipulative and almost evil. But in his mind, this is the thing that makes great bad guys great villains, is they think what they're doing truly is beneficial for other people, and truly as a mission. Like, he believes Cobra Kai is helping the people who are part of his dojo. He feels it's helped Johnny. He took Johnny from being this kind of weird loser teenage kid to being a karate champion. And he still feels Johnny will benefit. At the end of the series, he says, one day you'll thank me for this. So in his mind, he still feels that what he's doing is helping people out. So it's interesting. The one thing is, this show takes a lot of humor, and they mix it with deep emotional triggers. So there's hilarious parts of this. When Johnny's learning about the internet and computers, that's pretty funny. But then there's also these horrific moments of emotional drama that kind of tear at you. They tear at your heartstrings. Johnny, man, I mean, he has this thing where, in the first season, things get going great. He's got a successful dojo and things are going well. Then at the end, he's got to see his best student beat the heck out of his own son. So it doesn't really end well for him. Season 2 is even worse, because the guy he treats like a son, Miguel, he may die. And it's the opposite, because the guy who basically would have killed him is his own son. So kind of the role switch. And he's always sort of stuck in this horrible place. And yeah, completely recommend it. The only thing I hate about this show, I gotta mention it, is the character Sam. I think she was irritating, annoying. I hate the fact that she's a big part of this show, which is probably a tribute to how good the actress is, because she makes you hate her. She's kind of conniving. In season 1, she's dating this one guy, Miguel. Then she parades Robbie around him, goes to the beach holding his hand, and then acts like a victim, oh, I can't believe you're so jealous. Well, yeah, I would be jealous too if you're having dinner and inviting this guy over to your house, and then you show up to a party with holding his hand and stuff. Yeah. And then in season 2, she does the opposite. She's with Robbie, and then ends up making out with Miguel or something, and then does it in front of his girlfriend, which is kind of weird, because in that the show, Miguel and Tori, which is his girlfriend in season 2, they leave her alone. They leave the party to go outside, and then she follows them, and she starts trouble. In any case, I was disappointed when I found out she was going to be a big part of season 2, but I mean, it's a small thing. Other than that, this show's great, man. I recommend anybody watch this if you're a fan of the 80s, which I am. In fact, it's kind of looking into the mirror when there's one character Johnny meets at the hardware store who's obsessed with the 80s, and then I was like, oh man, I can make fun of this guy, but maybe that's me. Maybe that's how like my younger coworkers feel about me when I start referencing things like Whitesnake and Poison and Kit and Baywatch and the A-Team from like the 1980s. So yeah, maybe I should watch that. Watch what I say around these kids, because they just look at me like I'm 90. In any case, if you get a chance, this is probably the best thing that's out there right now as far as entertainment. I know people like Game of Thrones and they like what's the show with the kids, Stranger Things and all that stuff. But man, this is the best stuff out there. All right. Anyhow, I think the next video I'm gonna do is another topic about the 80s. I think I'm gonna draw some pictures with the characters of Double Dragon, which is one of my favorite video games to play as a kid. All right. See ya.